So, obviously Cameron was not very into social media in any form in the movie, but what about Mr. Tanner Buchanan himself? What about you and your TikTok ventures, possibly?
I mean, I don't know. You taught me today a TikTok dance, this one thing.
Yep.
But otherwise on set we didn't really I didn't learn any dances I watched you do them a lot and then realized how much I was not going to be able to learn them that fast.
She's All That was an iconic 90s teen movie. What are teen movies that you grew up on and you love?
Well, as you know, I'm a big rom-com romantic movie aficionado person. She's All That was a big one for me. 10 Things I Hate About You was a big one for me. You know, Clueless. And then obviously one of my all-time favorites, A Walk to Remember. I did pull inspiration from some of those movies for this. So I watched She's All That a lot and try to make sure that I kind of got the idea of, you know, Lainey and trying to make sure that everyone could almost, like their subconscious would be like, this seems familiar and I'm very happy with it. And I actually too, I drew some inspiration. I had talks with our director, Mark Waters, and actually with one of our producers, Jennifer Gibgot, about trying to incorporate a little bit of Heath Ledger from 10 Things I Hate About You, because the characters, it's kind of a mix between the two, making sure that, you know, that harshness and that kind of, I don't want to say bad boy kind of thing, but that outcast sort of feeling was there from Heath Ledger. Did He's All That, is it one of those roles that you dreamt about, you know, as a kid, and did it live up to the expectation that it was to be able to play that, you know, that role that everybody can kind of relate to in that movie that everybody really enjoys and has fun watching?
Yeah, I mean, it lived up to every expectation, to be honest. Just the set in general and being on a production, yeah, it lived up to everything, if not exceeded it. I feel like as a kid, especially, like me growing up, I've always loved rom-coms, loved like watching romance on film, and even just like no matter how cheesy it was, I feel like that's what makes it better, because I'm like, oh, I just love like the essence and the innocence that comes with like a romantic comedy is like so sweet, and like the love is just so undeniable. I just love that feeling of like watching something like that. I'm a hopeless romantic in general, so watching something like that just makes me feel good. So yeah, I mean, it was a dream come true to be able to kind of do that after, you know, watching all of that growing up and wanting to be a part of that. What about you?
Well, I was gonna say, I agree with that, because for me, I was the same way for me. That's what I grew up with. We had everything in that movie with the makeover, you know. I always wanted to be kind of like the outcasty kind of person that gets to go through this big change. I mean, we all even got to be part of, you know, a dressing room montage.
Oh yeah, that was
so like, who doesn't dream about doing that? You get to see them, you know, trying on different clothes and doing all kinds of stuff, and everybody's like, I want to do that. I want to have that moment. We got to have that moment. Yeah, I mean,
even the karaoke, like that moment of like doing something fun like that. Pool parties, that was so fun to film.
It lived up to every expectation. Given that this is like your first big acting debut, is there a piece of advice that you really kind of connected to that maybe I gave you?
I feel like we felt really comfortable and confident, and like I definitely like more like watched and learned in a way. Like I feel like that was like the best way for me to understand like you, and like also just like get tips from you in a way, like by watching and observing. And one thing I remember, I actually pointed it out to you. You like to like mark your stuff in colors for like emotions, and like that was something that I learned from you. That was like just like being intentional, you know? Like I think being intentional with decisions I make as my character, or like even every line.
And He's All That, your character Paget is a social media influencer. Is there anything that you pulled from your real life that you kind of put into Paget?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely pulled a lot of experiences that I've had maybe with myself and figuring myself out. Paget kind of like figures a lot about herself out in the time of the film and really gets to know herself and the people around her a little bit better. And sometimes people aren't meant to be in your life, and I think she kind of realizes that too. You know, she had friends that she thought were her friends and ended up just not being the best friends that are supposed to be in her life. And I've drawn that from experiences I've had just by, you know, meeting people and then connecting with some and not connecting with others, and realizing that life continues and moves on, and you adjust and you become a person that you're meant to be as you make decisions and go through things. And I think that's kind of what I drew from myself, is that, you know, you've got to have bad times and you've got to go through the bad sometimes to get to the good. So how much of Cameron did you relate to in real life?
So, I mean, I did, but I didn't. I went through the phase of long hair, and I actually, truly, there's a joke in it where Cameron wears the same, like, 3 flannels or something. I went through that stage for about 2 years where I actually had 2 flannels I would kind of switch. Never washed them, which was not nice. But, you know, I had this stage where I was always kind of an outcast, doing different things than everybody else as I was growing up. That's almost it, because I try to separate a character from myself, but it's interesting because you have to find that balance of putting yourself into it.
How much of your Cobra Kai training came into play when doing the fight scene for He's All That?
Came in handy very much, because I remember we were talking about the fight with our stunt coordinator, Wade, and we kind of came up with something, and I pretty much memorized it in about 15-20 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
And I know, because compared to what I usually do, it was much easier.
Yeah, I'm sure it was a piece of cake compared to Cobra Kai.
So it didn't take me very long.
Is there a moment that was your favorite memory on set, or was there a scene in particular that was exciting to film?
I feel like I've said this a lot, but it's all the horse, anything dealing with the horses. That was my jam. I mean, our job was to say lines and ride around on horses. I mean, how much better could it get? Was there a favorite scene of yours that is memorable, or was your favorite shooting the movie? Yeah, so I'm gonna have to say when I did my monologue, honestly. That one's one that I kind of have grazed over, speaking about favorite scenes to film. It wasn't like the most like adventurous, which is what I've been kind of saying when people ask. I've been like horses or Gatsby or the dance, but my monologue for the prom was probably my favorite thing to really get into and do. I actually remember that one of the girls, like one of the background girls or extras, she was in the audience like whenever we had everyone kind of there, and when I did my monologue for the first time, she started crying in the audience, and I was like, and she like sweet. Came up to me after and was like, that was really real. Like, it was so good, and like you could tell like you meant those words, and I was like, wow, thank you. Like, that was really special to me to hear that, like, you know, I could actually like touch someone in that way, even on set. Was acting always a goal for you growing up? And if you had a dream role, what would that be? Yeah, so acting was always a goal for me. Being a performer and an entertainer was like always just something that my soul and like heart and mind craved always. I love performing, I love putting on a show, I love telling a story, and you get to do so much of that in acting, and you know, everything else I get to do. And like I said, I was very determined to make it happen, and I really wanted to do this no matter what it took to get here. I did get very fortunate and very blessed that in the way that it came and happened for me. But I knew I was gonna make it happen no matter what. But it was really cool to kind of experience it in a different way, and I got brought into it in a crazy way. As far as, you know, if I'm gonna be in anything next, I, you know, really hope so. That's the goal. I really wanna continue. I think this is just the beginning, and I'm gonna continue to work really hard and hopefully have really amazing roles. I never really wanna say like a dream role, because I feel like any role is a dream role, you know, to get a part that you really enjoy. So maybe my dream role is a script that I really love. Like, I end up falling in love with the script, right? Like the character. So I don't know what that may be, but... That's every script. What is the next role that you want to play then? How about that? Maybe something that gives a little bit more challenge in a way. Like, I think this role was also challenging in different ways, but I think it was a little bit more relatable for me. So maybe something that's kind of like a little left or a little right, you know, of what I'm used to or what I did in this movie. So something maybe with a little bit more emotion, or like
a little bit, I would love to do a horror movie. That would be really fun. I have a great scream for that. But I would also like love to continue around, like, I love rom-com, obviously. Drama is really cool for me, like sci-fi even. I don't know, I feel like just anything that challenges me even more, you know?